Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Today we are going to start doing the S14 front suspension conversion. So we decided to go S14 and we're going to do some upgrades along the way. So I'm pretty sure I got every part I need. And we're going to go over a little list in a second. But for years and years people have been doing the S chassis front suspension swap on the Y33s. And for quite some time, it was determined that you needed to run an S14 or S13 control arm in order to do this. But it was somewhat recently figured out that you can just press an S13 ball joint into the Y33 lower control arm. So that way we can keep our stock track. Most people run extended control arms to get more camber out of it. I don't really need any more camber. I'm not going super camber VIP with this. We have camber plates, so we should get as much as we need out of that. Worst case scenario, I can add as much as I want to the factory control arms. They sell, different kits that you can do 20 millimeters, 40 millimeters, whatever. And I got a good welder set up, so if I do decide I want to put a little more camber into the control arm, I can buy that kit and weld it in. But a couple things while running the Y33 control arms. The sway bar on a S chassis mounts directly to the control arm. On a Y33, it mounts to the lower portion of the coilover. So all you have to do is really drill a hole in the control arm, make it identical to an S chassis control arm because it pretty much is the same control arm anyways. So just drill a hole in it, pop it through, and that should figure that issue out. And I could not get a clear answer on this, but because I'm running Y33 control arms, the stock ones, I believe that I can keep my stock Y33 tension rods as well. But just in case, I have a set of, somewhere around here, S14 tension rods, just stock ones off of my Sylvia. So if we need to run those, I could just throw those in. What I would do is I would just buy the poly inserts for it, which I plan on doing with the stock Y33 ones anyways. I really don't need adjustability there right now. So right now they're not leaking, but I do plan on upgrading those to poly. So now we're going to go over the parts list on the stuff I do have, and it should be pretty complete. We'll find out when I start putting it on how everything fits and goes together. But here is the parts list to do the Y33 to S chassis front end conversion. So you guys seen me put the mono SS coilovers in, and the mono SS are the exact same things as BCs. So I am keeping my Y33 coilovers, but I just bought S14 lower BC mounts. So that allows, instead of having a spindle like the Y33, which pretty much you're bottomed out, that's as far as you can go, this is a pass-through setup, which is the big advantage here. So the coilover can go in and out the bottom, so we can get it a little bit farther up to get a little bit lower. But we have the two S14 lowers for these coilovers. We have S14 knuckle to coilover bolts, which are surprisingly expensive. Luckily, DJ had a set, so I went and stole them from him. Shout out DJ No Way. Go follow his channel. But these 4 bolts, if you buy them from a Nissan dealer, like a local dealer, are $100 for 4 bolts, which is insane. They're a little bit cheaper if you order them online, but you're going to spend 60, 70, 80 bucks by the time shipping and everything for the bolts and the nuts, which is crazy. So we got S chassis, S14, brand new sway bar links, so we can convert to the S chassis sway bar setup. Or sway bar link setup. We're not doing the whole sway bar. Keeping Y33 sway bar, just the S14 links. We have S14 tie rod ends because the Y33 uses a different taper for the knuckle. So S14 tie rod ends. And these are S15 knuckles, which are the same as S14 knuckles. So you can get any S14 or S15 knuckle. The big advantage that I went with S15 is that all S15s have ABS. You can find S14 with ABS. Most people that do this conversion eliminate ABS, but I wanted to keep it as factory as possible, so I bought ABS knuckles, which were a bit harder to find, but I found them, and these are S15 ABS knuckles. And then we bought the conversion for, well, you don't need a conversion, but these are S15 Spec R brakes, same as Z32 30mm brakes. They are steel ones. They're not the early aluminum ones, which are super fly, but they're still an upgrade, and they're the same things as the aluminum ones, just steel. So these happen to be off of an S15 Spec R, and they're like super mint. So we got Z32 brakes, and then these blue brackets allow me to run a bigger 350Z Brembo front rotor. So we're going a little bit bigger than Z32. We got 350Z Brembo rotors, and it'll fill up the wheel well quite a bit. Look pretty cool. You need the S14 5-lug front hubs. These are the stock S15 ones. I bought these units complete, so I had everything I needed on them. But any S14, S15 will work on the S14, S15 knuckles. If you use an S13 knuckle, you need to use S13 5-lug because they are different. And then S14 ball joints. And same deal with that. If you use S13 knuckles, which you can use, no problem, but you need to use S13 ball joints because they are different as well. S14 and S13 don't interchange. So you can use either an S13, 14, or 15 setup. 14, 15 is going to be all the same shit. 13, you got to stay with 13 stuff. But that's pretty much it, I'm pretty sure. So we're going to start taking it apart and start putting these parts on and see how far we go. All right, we are going up. All right, so we are running into our first little issue. So hopefully you guys watch this video if you plan on doing this, so you don't do the same things that I do, and you could learn from this and you can be prepared. Like I am not. I mean, I thought I was, but if you guys remember on my S14 Sylvia, I upgraded the sway bars on it. So online, they say that you can use the factory Y33 sway bar, but you have to drill a hole in the control arm, like I was saying. Well, you don't have to drill a hole because it's already there. So that's the hole that the sway bar mounts into. It goes on top, but that mounts through there, and the bolt would be through the bottom. However, I guess the light is dead. However, the sway bar is all the way over here. So there is no way that you can mount this, and even when you take this off, it moves up. It's going to be way too far away. Oh, actually, I mean, I guess once it's lowered down, maybe? No, there's no way. There's no way. It's way too far away. But going back to, I upgraded the sway bars on my S14, so they're aftermarket. They say an S14 sway bar bolts directly to a Y33. So to rectify this issue, all you'd have to do is bolt my S14 stock sway bar into this. Where do you think my stock sway bar is? I fucking threw it out. Because who the fuck is ever going to need a stock S14 front sway bar after you upgrade them? I've had S chassis sway bar sitting in here for 5, 6, 7 years, never fucking touched them. So I'm like, oh, let's just toss it, scrap it, throw it in the scrap pile, never going to need it. And now I need it. So I'm gonna have to buy a fucking sway bar. Total false alarm. I actually did not throw out the sway bar, which is awesome. I found it. It was buried in a parts pile. And when I pulled that out, this fell out with it. I had no idea how this got back there. This is a factory owner's manual for a 97 Kooky. All the original stuff in it. That is super cool. I didn't know that was hiding back there too in my parts pile. So I'm stoked. I have a sway bar. I don't have to cut and weld mine. And we got a little present at the same time. All right, so we are basically at a point now where we're starting disassembly. I'm not going to super go into that because I did that on my last video. You guys seen me take the whole thing apart. There's no need for me to show it again. So that's where we're at with the Brembos, Fembros. I knew they were coming off, so we were just fucking around one night. All right, so that didn't take very long. We got the whole knuckle assembly and coilover out, which I just had this thing apart, so it really wasn't that hard. I was already familiar with it. And here is the whole setup. So now we're just going to take the coil out of this whole knuckle assembly and install our BC lower onto it. And then we got to pull the control arm itself off so we can press the new ball joint in. Once you have the coilovers out, you can disassemble, take the actual shock out of the knuckle setup, and you can spin your new BC lower on. Like I said, these are the exact same coils as BC. If you look at the bottom of BC's, they have this exact thing on the bottom. Identical, literally identical. All right, so we got the lower control arm off. We got the new tie rod end on. They seem to be the exact same size as the ones I took off. And this nut did not move. It stayed in the exact same spot. So we just unscrewed it and screwed it on. Probably still gonna have to adjust it. Keeping my fingers crossed, but I know it's gonna need an alignment. But here is the control arm, nice and clean. So we have to take that C-clip off and push this ball joint out. And as I was stating before, I have the polyurethane bushings for this. So I am going to push this one out and see if this is the correct one. If it is not, I am going to try to do it carefully and keep this bushing intact and hopefully not destroy it. But it's looking like this is the correct one. All right, so the ball joint was not the easiest one I've taken out. I obviously destroyed the original one taking it out. But with the press, there was no real way to press on it because it's like this curved shape. So it kept slipping out of the press. So what I did was I just took the MAP gas, heated it up for 4 or 5 minutes so it was nice and hot, and I just whacked it out with a sledgehammer. Wherever that went. Oh, it's over there. So yeah, heated it up, whacked it out. There's a C-clip that goes on top as well. Obviously you got to take that off. You've seen me do that. So I'm just letting this cool down now. And then the new one can be pressed back in because it just sits in a way that it'll be easy to press. So we should be good to go. And we're not going to put the energy bushing in. Y33 is the same as S14, and these ones I have say that they're for an S13. I don't know why I have S13 ones when I'm pretty sure the whole energy kit I had was S14, but the part numbers are coming back S13, so it's only like 20 bucks for the S14 ones. I'm just going to order those, so when I get those in, it'll be easy enough to pop this off since I have the S14 knuckles. Take the bolt off the knuckle, the tension rod, and sway bar link, and the one bolt, bam, drop it right down. And then we'll do the poly bushings. For now, the stocks are completely fine. They're not torn. They're nice and tight. So for now, they'll stay in there and they're fine. But what we'll do is maybe we'll rebuild the whole arms. Maybe we'll add like 20 millimeters to it. We'll weld that, and then we'll box in the bottom of it, like the Nismo arms are. So we'll get a kit to box it in, extend it, and then we'll put a polyurethane bushing in there. That way we'll have fully built arms. All right, control arm is done with the new ball joint. I can now officially confirm that S14 ball joints do fit in the Y33 control arm because it was kind of up in the air. But yeah. None of this was done with the press. The press was useless. This was all done with big sockets and a sledgehammer. So I just put a big socket around this outside ring right here and basically hammered the ball joint in, and then just put the C-clip on. Got to be careful not to rip the ball joint. I gave it plenty of space to go through. But yeah, I heated it up, banged the old one out, and then did not heat it up, but I banged the new one in. You probably could heat up the actual control arm a little bit and it would go in a little easier because I really had to whack it. But it went right in and looks good to go now. I still do have to take this sway bar off and install the S14 sway bar as well. So maybe I'll do that quick, and that way we can actually install this side. And then we're gonna call it a night. It's getting a little late, but I want to at least get this side done for the night, and then we'll finish the rest tomorrow. Here is where we are at. We pulled out the stock sway bar, really not that bad to do. And you can see how much longer it is than the S14 setup. You can also see that the S14 setup should fall right into place in there and fit just fine. And it's a solid 6 inches shorter. So we should be in good shape now. We should be able to run the factory S14 sway links. S14 sway bar does not fit. It is physically a little bit too narrow and it hits everything. And it does not seem like it's going to reach anyways, even if it was fat enough or wide enough. So what I seen online, it was an aftermarket sway bar that said it fit Y33 and S14. So I'm assuming I'm going to have to get an aftermarket sway bar for an S14/Y33. So we're going back to the original idea. I'm going to do it at the end when everything's fully together. I'm going to chop and weld my original sway bar. And if it comes out perfect, then it'll probably be a permanent thing unless I pick up a sway bar. But if I don't like the way it comes out, then I will be shopping for a sway bar. So we're going to finish putting this side together and then call it a night. But yeah, S14 OEM sway bar, no worky. And OEM Y33 without heavily modifying it, no worky either. So I have no idea what these other guys are running. I know a lot of them don't even run a sway bar, but I do want to run a sway bar, so I am going to make it work one way or another. Okay, so we got a lot of this setup all installed. Knuckle is installed, tie rod installed, the whole coilover installed. Now, one thing I should mention, if you plan on going like Z32 brakes with the 350Z rotor, you gotta cut the this part of the brake shield, so it's just a flat shield because the disc is too big. If you're gonna run just Z32 brakes, you would not have to do this because this is an S15 Sylvia brake dust shield. So that would fit a Z32 rotor because it's the same rotor. Now, if you do it with a US spec knuckle, you're gonna have to cut it as well, regardless of what brake you run. Even if you keep the stock Q45/Sima brakes, these two pistons, then you'll still have to cut it because they are the same diameter as Z32 brakes. So the only reason why I was able to keep most of it, besides just the top little flap, is because it was an S15 cover. Now, one more bad news is the ABS sensor that comes from the Sima does not fit in the ABS sensor hole for the S14 S15 knuckle. So I have to find out if the plug is the same as an S chassis, so I could just use S chassis ABS sensors to keep my ABS, or if I can splice an S chassis ABS sensor with a Y33 plug, or repin it. Ideally just repin it. But yeah, one more thing that does not quite match up. A lot of people are just going to eliminate the ABS anyways. Most people do. I tried keeping it so I did not have to, and so far it is a fail. So we'll see what I can do for ABS sensors so I can keep it. But already this is, I can lower it much more than this, and it's already way lower than the other setup. So we are exactly where we want to be height wise, and we have our preload back set in the coil. So we are in good shape there. All right, we are back today to put some more work on the Sima. Hopefully finish it up, but we got a little R&D that we got to do. So off camera, I figured it a little something out that is, I've never read about this online. So this might be the cheat code to get ABS working. So the ABS sensors do fit. I know yesterday I said they don't fit. That's just because my ABS holes were so crusty. I cleaned them out. I sanded them out with a little grinder. And the ABS sensors do in fact fit on the S15, S14 knuckles. Now, the problem is the ABS sensors are flipped. So they're on the opposite side of the knuckle. So what I've done, it should work in theory, is I've taken the right side ABS sensor and put it on the left knuckle. So that way the magnets are facing towards the ABS ring. If you put the left side on the left knuckle, the magnets are going to face the opposite direction. So all I do is flip them around, and it seems to clear. Everything seems to work. It is a very tight fit, but nothing is hitting, and everything seems to be kosher. So we are going to see how that works. However, my other ABS sensor, my OEM right side, is stuck in this knuckle. So I'm gonna have to try some tactics to get it out so I can stuff it into the new knuckle. If not, then I'm gonna be looking for an ABS sensor, and I'm gonna have to live with an ABS light on for now. But it does look like the S chassis sensors are exactly the same.
Painful.
All right, so we are on the other side. We are torching this ball joint, get it nice and hot, and we're gonna whack it out with the sledgehammer because the press failed on the other one and it was just easier to whack out. So that's what we're doing, heating it up, and we're gonna whack the new ball joint in. All right, now we are getting into the juicy custom stuff. So this one's pretty easy because we switched the ABS sensor from left to right side. I just switched the brackets. You got to take basically 2 sets of pliers and just pry the ABS line out of the bracket. Make sure not to bend it up too much, and then just swap the sides on them. That has to go on here. That way it bolts up. Otherwise it's going to be facing the wrong way. So some easy. And then after that, I'm going to be cutting and welding my sway bar. I already marked it. You can't really see it, but I marked where it has to be. So that way it lines up to the S chassis sway bar link. So we're going to cut it, and then we're going to tack it in the car. I'm going to mount it up like it's there for good, and we're going to tack it, pull it back out, and then completely weld it around. So we should be good on that front. So a little bit of custom work going into this. I have yet to see a write-up that does all this. So I think this is going to be the most complete write-up on doing a S chassis to Y33 front suspension swap with ABS at least. But yeah, let's get to it. Now comes the hard stuff. Okay, and this is how it looks like, all bent back together. You can see it's not perfect because the cable is physically flipped around. Now it will go in its little hole, and the bracket bolts right up like stock because it's for that side. And we can just figure out where to mount this once the shock is on there. Either mount it to the coilover with the bracket, put it back on, or just zip tie it. We got some progress, but we are not there yet. The right side all mounted up. Everything is tight. Good to go. Other side, everything is mounted up, everything's tight, and the ABS is ran and plugged in, so that's all good to go. Next is brakes, but first we started working on the sway bar. So we cut the end off the sway bar, we started cutting here, and my disc wore out. So I have to go get another disc, and then we're gonna get back to work. But so I wasn't prepared basically. But it's getting kind of late, so I'm gonna go run to the store, grab some discs, and go home for the night. And then I'll be back tomorrow. So we're going on day 3 of doing this, but I've kind of done it half-ass and dicked around here and there, and only here for a couple hours. So I'm not doing it in a speedy manner. Don't take as long as I'm taking, as that's how long this project will take you. It is not a couple hour thing. It's going to take you a little bit because of all the shit that's involved, especially if you're going as far as I am, but it's also not like too crazy. So my timeline isn't really matching up. If I started in the morning and I had everything, I could probably finish by nighttime. Yeah, so it's not that big of a deal, but I'm just kind of taking my time and doing it. But yeah, I'm gonna go to the store, get what we need, and I will see you guys tomorrow.